Hello, and thank you for tuning into another episode of the Professional Pricing Society podcast. My name is Terrence, and we have another great conversation in store for you today with a very, very special guest who goes by the name of Michael Compton. Michael is the Director of Firm Strategy and leader of the new pricing function at Edward Jones with 16 years in full service financial advisory industry experience. Mr. Michael, sir, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Terrence. It's good to be
Good.
here.
Good. Thank you so much for being here. We're so glad to have you. Let's go ahead and jump into this conversation. So, you're speaking with us today about pricing with evolving value within a professional service industry. Okay. So, this is a very interesting topic. Why is pricing with evolving value within the professional services industry important for pricing professionals today?
Well, I was able to attend last spring's conference, and being in the professional services industry, I saw how sharing approaches and sharing, what's happening in different industries was really informative for me. So I thought, when given this opportunity, I'd like to kind of talk about some of the challenges that we see, because I think it will not only help folks in the professional services industry, but might be able to those approaches in the discussion could even apply to maybe some other industries as well. As you think about the full service wealth management full service industry, it's evolved so much over time. So go back to like 1980. Like if you wanted to buy a stock or bond or a mutual fund, you had to actually call an individual. And then, all of a sudden the end of the 90s come and we've got the internet, and you could place a phone call. So now we got day traders, right? So what do you need a broker for? Well, they're going to start building. They're going to say, wait a minute, my value prop is now building portfolios. So that went for a while, but then you've got robos enter the industry, and you've got these hybrid models where you have someone in the home office kind of coaching you through your investment. So why do you need to pay this full service professional these higher fees? So just the value is changing over time, and now really it's delivering personalized, comprehensive advice and guidance, but our monetization or the way we price that hasn't caught up to where the value prop is. And just that evolution and how quickly it's changing over time, I thought would be a really great conversation.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, so I want to ask as well, you know, just thinking about that a little bit further and about the evolution of this, what do investors value in a full service wealth management offering compared to, do it yourself situations or other scalable models?
Absolutely. So when you go to a full service wealth management office, you're getting actually a lot of services.
Hmm.
There's what we call custody in the industry, where they custody your assets. So if you own stocks, bonds, mutual funds,
Hmm.
they custody those for you. They also do investment management, where help you enter the market, align your goals to your investments. But it's a lot more than that as well. If you take JD Power results on investor satisfaction for 2022 just hit, and the way they're starting to talk about the value proposition in this industry, it's holistic financial advice where there's a plan, and that you have a professional delivering that to you. And one of the key things that we've seen in past analysis is, if you have a professional delivering that advice and guidance, it's almost like a coaching relationship, and they're holding
Mm.
you accountable so that you personally can meet your goals.
Hmm.
And one other thing that I took from that survey that was interesting is the third driver that they cite as the third most important driver is the value for the fees that they're paying. That's what clients and investors are looking at.
Mm.
And then I think hit on it just a little bit. Trust is such an important thing. You're talking about your money, your livelihood, how you're going to retire, how are you going to put your kids through college. Do you need to take care of your parents because they're getting out, they're getting there up in the years? Like, these are really, really important things that people need to accomplish. And having a trusted advisor, that's part of that value proposition, where they can kind of almost do life with you.
Mm.
So very different from other professional services industries, but it's part of the overall value proposition. And you see clients will put more emphasis on certain parts of that value proposition where, some clients are just looking for the investments. Some clients are looking for that personal relationship. Some clients are really looking for that plan to give them confidence that they can actually get there. So it's really interesting.
That is interesting. So it sounds like this is heavily based on cultivating a mutually beneficial relationship, a healthy relationship.
Exactly. And then now think about how do you pay for investment services?
Yeah.
You pay for a stock trade. You might pay 2.5% for a stock trade that you probably could do online for free or $15. So you're in the situation where you're almost like overpaying and then getting the good stuff for free, if
Mm,
that makes sense.
it does make sense. That's interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So there's these dynamics between us and our home office that run the business, and our sales folks, our financial advisors. Um, so they also need to keep up with the evolving industry. So they have some clients that put a lot of value on that, stock recommendations, kind of like the way we used to do business in the 80s. And you've
Hmm.
got other clients that are just starting to save for retirement, and it's more about, are they saving versus how they're saving. So just keeping our sales force in tune with the industry and where value is evolving over time with their different segments of clients, that's a really interesting dynamic if you start to dig into it. And then also, the amount of information investors have, I'm always, and I'll probably do this poll in person, do you know what you pay for financial advice? And I'll tell you, it is all over the place on that, what that answer is.
Mm,
So it's very interesting the amount of trust they're putting with their financial advisor, but the very limited understanding in how they pay. And then you, as a professional a pricer in the industry, how do you, how do you reconcile those things? A lot of trust is needed. Not too many of your clients or customers understand how they're paying for advice.
mm.
How do you manage pricing in this type of industry?
That's interesting. That is a good point. Not everyone may be aware of how they may be what they're getting for their buck, if that makes sense. Okay. Um,
Exactly.
Now, you may have touched on this previously just now, but what makes professional services pricing different from other industries?
So you can think about professionals like financial advisors or doctors, or lawyers.
Hmm.
Um, you, they typically run their business, and I'm using air quotes. I know you can't see it, but
Sure.
they have their niche, they have their approach, but we're providing guidance on how they need to price their practices. So it's interesting on how you have to almost be a little bit of customized in how you approach pricing, or you need to segment your professionals in the business
Hmm.
to be able to do that. So that's one interesting dynamic versus another. Like manufacturing might have sales associates. That's an important dynamic, but it's not as, I don't think it's as differentiated as you'll see one financial advisor or one doctor in their practice versus another doctor in their practice.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I think makes it really different is the amount of acumen that professional has. So you have that professional enters the industry. They might have 1, 2, 3 years of experience versus the professional that has 20 years of experience.
Mm,
And there's a lot of value, or there's a lot of perceived value in that professional that has a lot of experience. So how do you equate for that when you're thinking about it? And then finally, when you're in a professional services industry, the client or the customer is kind of bringing some of the goods to to the relationship.
hmm.
So in investments, it's their investments and their savings. And then in other professional services like a plumber, they're working on your stuff. So it's kind
Yeah,
of interesting where you have that different dynamic that you would in other industries.
that is interesting. It's very unique, it sounds like, in
Yeah.
comparison to other industries. Have there been any specific approaches you've taken towards pricing professional services?
So one of the other reasons that I was excited to do this is I just wanted to share some of my experiences with other professionals, because our pricing team within firm strategy is
Hmm.
only 2 years old.
Wow.
Over time, as the industry has evolved, firms like mine have owned more and more of their pricing. So before it used to be dictated by regulations and government,
Sure.
and more, or product partners that create like mutual funds or insurance products. Now we're owning more and more of our pricing. So I made the case to my senior leaders that we really need a pricing function now. And it's not something you see a lot in the financial services industry. Some of the
Hmm.
larger players have it, but a lot of them don't. So I just want to share my experience
For
on,
sure.
how did we build that? So just to give you a little bit of preview of, what we're going to talk about, how important is it to stay close to white papers in the industry and what's in the news? Because there's a lot of innovation going on.
Hmm.
So we have a lot of relationships outside of our organization where we're talking to individuals that write these white papers or are in other parts of the industry like Morningstar.
Hmm.
Data is super important. The data that I'll talk a little bit about the types of data that we buy externally to
Hmm.
really understand what's happening in the industry versus the type of data that we create in our firm to understand what clients are paying for this financial advice and kind of matching that up to value.
Hmm.
We're going to talk a little bit about focus groups, with my sales teams, with potential investors, with clients. How does that factor into pricing?
Hmm.
And then I've got a really great analytics team where we build all sorts of financial models as well as just capabilities that we embed in different parts of our business. And then finally, communication is so important. And this is
Hmm.
actually where I'm going to share kind of like some key learnings. Things did not go well in a couple of instances, and
Hmm.
why I think communication across your firm and your home office, across your sales team, and then being super transparent with your investors and clients is so important because the more we understand, the better we all stakeholders are in these conversations, and leads to better pricing decisions, in my opinion.
One quick question for you. Thinking about the professional service industry, do you foresee other companies within this industry to apply or to pick up this type of mentality or approach when it comes to pricing functionality?
Absolutely. I'm starting to see, at least in our industry and the industries that kind of adjoin our industry,
Hmm.
I'm starting to see it in consulting engagements
Okay.
and those are usually kind of like a front runner of what you'll see kind of built out as a capability within different firms. So as we partner with different consulting firms or just reading their white papers that they publish publicly, I think this is a direction that a lot of our firms are going to start going towards for a couple different reasons. When you think about the what some of the important dynamics in professional services, part of its capacity, right?
Hmm.
So a professional only has so many hours in a day.
Hmm.
And how do you think about that and price for that? And then on top of that, innovation has just really started
Hmm.
picking up, right? And so what should your clients and your customers kind of be able to do on their own versus what should the professional be doing? Just understanding cost structures, cost to serve, how pricing is perceived, key drivers in economics. It's all really important. So I think this very broad approach that I'm getting into is really important to have something like this in place to be able to keep up with an evolving industry.
Yeah, that was my assumption. But it's not fair to just assume. I have to it makes the most sense to ask the experts first and foremost about the future. So that makes a lot of sense. That's important to know moving forward regarding this particular industry. Now you have years of expertise in this field. Um, what makes you excited to be in a pricing role within the professional service industry, given all your
So
expertise and the years you have behind you?
Yep. So one of the things that makes me excited about, even though I've been in the industry for quite a while, touching pricing most of the time I've been in the industry, what makes me really excited is that innovation we just talked about.
Mm,
Like it's innovation is unlocking value, and it's not only benefiting my firm, it's benefiting our sales force. And in the end, I think clients are getting a lot more value.
mm,
And one of the reasons I really enjoy the role that I'm in as a pricing professional is how do we create a win-win situation where there's tens of millions of investors
mm,
across North America. And being able to achieve their goals is really important to them. So I feel like I'm on the front line trying to figure out the innovative ways to price our services so that we create more win-win situations for
mm-hmm,
all stakeholders. So that's really what gets me excited about it,
mm.
and just the speed of change that we're seeing in our industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. Innovation is huge, especially when it comes to industries that, as a at large haven't all necessarily picked up this concept yet. So I think there's a lot in store for the professional
I,
service industry.
I think so. I've been talking a big game here, but I think financial services,
Hmm.
there's a lot of room for improvement.
Mm. Okay,
Just
okay.
across the board. So
Sure.
that's something else that makes me really excited about the role that I'm in, being in
Hmm.
pricing and professional services, is I see a lot of room for improvement, and I want to be
Mm.
part of that.
Good, good. Well, hey, that's why we have you here. Now, Michael, do you have any additional resources or anything that our listeners can get, learn more about you or your company or your ideas?
All right. So I don't know if we're going to do this, but happy to put my LinkedIn information out there. So
Sure,
feel free to
sure.
contact me. I think as in the beginning you mentioned that I work with Edward Jones. So we're actually in. We have more locations than McDonald's. So you
Wow.
have to have one of our Edward Jones offices near you. So,
Mm,
but just look us up. Go to edwardjones.com. You can take a look at our firm. But really, what I'd like to encourage folks to do is. If you are interested in the financial services and the dynamics here, there is a wealth of information that is created by firms like JD Power, Morningstar. Just
hmm.
start Googling, and there's a lot of really good information out there. But if you are interested in specifics, I would ask you to just reach out to me through LinkedIn.
Okay. LinkedIn, Michael Compton. Well, thank you so much for your time today, sir. Pricing with evolving value in a professional services industry. Very insightful discussion we had with you today. Until next time, you all have a safe one. Bye bye.